Hello, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11. And of course, this series we're playing as Japan. Sort of tell that from the thumbnail, from the description, from where we're starting off. Okay, well, I've just inherited Manchukuo. I'm really torn about this on several levels. The main, I really love immersion. I'm sort of fascinated by Pu Yi, the last emperor of China and the emperor of the puppet state, Manchukuo. And it really was very much of a puppet state. And it would be really nice to have it as immersion. But it's very nearly useless, and I do know we get the excess of resources basically from our puppet states, but I really sort of want this industry, which, trust me, the industry that was built up in Manchukuo, and see, I think they formed Manchukuo, oh god, 1934 I think is when they do that. And there's a massive Japanese buildup of industry, not just resources, but industry. Doesn't quite, the finished product industry, shall we say, doesn't quite match up to some of the big Zaibatsu type stuff that's going on in Japan, but it is very significant, and very significant for Japan's war effort. And some of the main things I wanted to make sure, which, because we just inherited it, we sort of have to, it goes to 0, we have to build it up, but we can see from the, here, you know, base metals are, you know, 6 energy, 28, lots of coal coming out of Manchukuo, and so 9, and so I really want this focused on our abilities. We are still facing fair amount of resistance. Now this is because of our garrisons. Here's why this is all green, not because we're not facing levels of resistance, normal black ice +4 and that kind of thing. It's just we have a suppression. So what we need to do here is make sure that we have suppressive units sitting on top of our resources out here to make sure that we get full benefits of them, and the industry as well, including in Korea. There was very limited sort of guerrilla action, terrorist type action going on in Korea. Not huge amounts, but yeah, and we would much rather have these garrison units here than proper army units, because we have more use for the army units to do other things. Okay, that should start getting that going. But we still have a fair amount of needs in Japan to properly keep our industry and resources going. Okay, this, I was waiting for to inherit Manchukuo, and then I was also waiting for this here. Well, we should look quickly through some of these. Okay, foreign minister. We'll get these. These will be jumped around a lot in coming. I don't know if as much as historical. If somebody's put in all the historical elements of this, I would be surprised of Japan. Japan is, again, I made yesterday's episode, the first episode, yesterday, and I'm making this episode today. About 9 hours after it, and I decided to, with Jeff's support. Jeff, very good viewer, and the reason Jeff is a very good viewer is he is a constant poster on the channel. The more you post, the better viewer you are. I love you all, even though those that and I do understand there's reasons you may not want to subscribe to or giving your information into YouTube and be able to then subscribe and like videos. I understand that. I still love you for coming and watching and bookmarking and finding videos. But of course, those that like videos, those that and I don't, at least I don't think I can see who exactly likes a video, but I do see who posts, and those are ones I get to know. Okay, so ruling party support susceptibility. Okay, that looks good. I think we'll keep him. Cancel. Let's look at replacing this guy. Now, these are only two choices if we change it, and I don't like to change. Resources are down, but consumer goods are needs are down. I think that's a worthy trade-off. Silent lawyer. Crime fighter, that may be something. Prince of Terror, that doesn't look like a good option. And as I'm sort of saying this is also in between, I watched about 4 hours of documentaries on Japan, one specifically on Tojo, which I hadn't seen that one before. Some of the other ones I actually had seen before, but it had been many years. Especially back before 1937, you still have fairly strong levels of other political parties, and you have a lot of social turmoil, but again, not really as I would see it as revolt risk turmoil in Japan. Japan did not have, well, okay, control click. It's the Toho, I think the primary one, because sometimes there's multiples. The Toho Kai, Toho Kai is the main fascist party, I believe, or one of the fascist parties. But it is a minor party in Japan at this time. Japan was not fascist. Japan was also not National Socialist in either sense. Japan was racist, okay? And I know as I'm making this, because of course some people may be watching this years later, we're having a controversy where you have a Chinese American, I believe she's Chinese American, but maybe she's other Asian, don't know, who's a rabid racist who has been hired by the New York Times, but she's just racist against white people. And according to some of their theories, is you can't be racist against either a majority peoples or a peoples, because you would then say the South African government was a minority racial government that was racist against the majority people, or you can't be a racist against people in power. Well, that's a lot of BS. They're racist. They're just as ugly hate racist as anybody else, and she is a hate racist. And they're giving these excuses online. Oh, well, she was just trolling back to racial whatever. Bullshit. And yeah, that may get this demonetized, I don't know, but the BS word. It is because someone's dug up some video of her at Harvard Law School. She's at the podium, and there's the Harvard Law or whatever symbol at the front of the podium, making rather, and I just saw a clip of it, so it's not like necessarily her whole, it's not her whole talk. She's talking and just a clip of it, but it's a few sentences. It's in context that are maybe not quite using vulgar terms, but she is definitely spewing her anti-white racism. So she is a racist. I would say most, and I know this is a big thing. Most Asian people are racist, but most are not. And they go, "Oh no, we're not." Man, if you look at some of the stuff, yeah, they are, but they're not in the mold of like the KKK or other hate group racism. Most of them, yeah, they're just sort of categorizing groups of people by their race. And part of that, and I really do mean this, I know I've already now said something, and I know we have Asian viewers here, and they may have already left, but part of that is because they are coming from countries that are primarily, and I mean not just like majority, but heavily 90+% of one race. Now, depends on how you carve up race. In China are Tibetans, yeah, which I would put them as a different racial group than the Han Chinese, and there are other, and I really, because I'm not exactly sure what would, and I'm sure there's different definitions, what would define not the ethnic, because there's both ethnic and race. Not sure what would exactly define the sort of Han Chinese race versus Filipinos, which I would put as a different race. The Kramer of of Cambodia, and some of these mountain people are of a different race. I think, again, and I'm going away, I think the coastal Vietnamese are coming out of, they're not Chinese, but they're coming out of, I think, the Han sort of racial background. I don't know, but I would put the Tibetans as a different race because they've had long-term genetic mutations, maybe is what you would call, to dealing with high altitude. They have very large barrel chest with very large lung capacity. And I'm sort of taking this from what I know a bit more about the Nepalese, but I think, and there are different racial groups, and you can also look at, recently, a few years ago, was sort of interested in Bhutan. There are several racial groups in Bhutan, and Bhutan is carved up very much between mountain valleys that had different groups of people moved in at different times, and they're very distinctive, and you can look at them and see distinctive, and it's not skin color. This is what America's always fixated on, is skin color. You can see it in bone structure and other deeper things, because skin color is one of the things that can change the quickest and easiest by more exposure to the sun in a few generations. And so some of these different isolated groups here that I would put as different genetic groupings of people that we would generally call race, and that may be sort of big blunt terms, but even where you do have a mega country like China, which is a mega country, you still have most everyone living in areas or regions that are of one race. And so they see the world, and then they see their world, and then they see the differences in the other worlds, and they see that there's different races, so that they have these views that are based on race. Where being an American, it makes, quite honestly, and I'm not just talking someone from the continent of America, but U.S. Americans, because I do sort of, in a way, consider Canadians. They're Americans. They're not U.S. Americans, but they're Americans because they have a very similar, and many of them have descendants pre-American Revolution that was on the losing side. Canada, I think, went up 2 or 3 times in its population just at the end of the American Revolution, as all of the Tories were leaving from America, and immigrated up to Canada as part of that. So they are. And then, of course, the Mexicans, the Latin Americans, notice I just said Latin Americans, South Americans, we're all flavors of Americans. We have very different experiences. But being an American, I get to know and see people of different races and behavior. And you can look at some videos of like recent sub-Saharan African migrants to Europe and the way they walk, and the way they behave, and the way they move. And then you look at African Americans and the way they walk and behave and move are radically different. But they're generally have a similar genetic background. And what it comes down to is culture and the way they're brought up. And we often look at, surface culture of food and music and language, but language is a deep culture too, but the nuances within that. So this is why I believe Asians, and again, this is not as in, I'm not hating on Asians, and I'm not thinking that Asians are hate racists, meaning they hate other peoples, but they categorize, I think, by race because that is their experience, because for the most part Japanese are of one race. You've got to really get up here to find some of the other group of Japanese race that may have, that are probably inhabited the Japanese Isles long before the main groups of Japanese ever showed up there. And they're slowly disappearing up there. So, yeah. Now, but the Japanese, and this is sort of and this is all getting around to explain the sort of background of this. The Japanese sort of take this sort of various identities and races, and then did get into their viewpoint super race identities similar to Nazism, and it is not specifically or primarily found in whatever this Koka Shakai Sugi, as they're calling it, National Socialists. There, and I'm not sure on this at all, but there were, like I was talking about the fascists, there were sort of parties that were taking National Socialist type ideas in different parts of the world and trying to create local versions of them. Very small splinter faction. This sort of what they're calling the control clique is sort of the main militarist type party, but there are others. Radical left-wing communist, very small. That's sort of, I agree with that. I would just put these two maybe a little bit larger and this much larger. And, okay, we have that. I would rather have more ICs in industrial intelligence. Okay, so we will change over to him. I don't think there's much other to change. We would give them money for metal. Okay, just because we want to. We're going to get a lot more. Now, let's reduce down some of that. Okay, what I wanted to do was wait to get, and we want to go from full civil economy to basic mobilization. Goes from a -40 IC to a -25 IC, though it does cost us more consumer goods, so we'll be bumping up to that. And instead of -40 resources, -25. So we want to do all of that. We would give the money for metal. No, we are waiting. I want to see how much metal we're getting, because we're still here. We're still working, repairing damage or whatever when it was transferred over to us. So once we can see the actual adjusted, because it's at 0.8 where it's going to get to 9 in time. And we have enough of a cushion to last for a few days. Now, Afghanistan... Okay, we'll buy a little bit of metal from you. And we can do more research right now. Okay, high density alloys. Or, well, let's get some basic tank capabilities. Pre-war armor construction. We'll do that. That should all help out. And we need to adjust this back up a little bit. Yes, we're struggling for this ship armor focus. We're going to do the Vickers non-cemented steel. And back down now that finally we've sort of dug ourselves out of our big hole that we have been in regarding production. Yeah, Japan's metal was, for the most part, and trust me, I'm going to say a lot of bad things, and especially if you know, watch my German series, I say a lot of bad things about Nazi Germany too. So this is not picking on, oh, and we're going to do some more shifting. So we're going to keep some. Okay, that will get us even more. Yes, high density alloys. I'm going to be saying some bad things about Japan, of course, but it's not all bad. Like one of the things they came up with pre the war with America, and they particularly helped out with the Zero, they came up with a very good, basically I think it becomes known as duraluminum, a very good aluminum alloy. So there is definitely some very good work being done by Japan in a bunch of these areas. But just overall, they're not matching what we're seeing in Germany and the U.S. overall. And it really isn't until post-war that the U.S. catches up with duraluminum. Okay, now that we've got this going, adjusted up to that, now we're going to hit this annual national focus. Been waiting for this. Okay, and we're going to build up our economy because we might as well do that at first. We will do some of these others later on. So for the first year, we will do that. And this now gives us, instead of one, it also gives us a manufacturing plant and a heavy industry. So we are sort of trying to optimize this, is what I've been doing for the start. And we can come back over here and still see our revolt risks. We are trying to move our... Oh, we also got a bunch down here. Okay, that's good. And what do we have left? Okay, seaport. Now, because this seaport's going to get us a 5% hit on, but just briefly. But I didn't want that in effect while we were trying to maximize. I was trying to get beyond even just those two factories. Didn't know if we would be able to by by maximizing. Okay, which is a little bit more money, a little bit more resources. And as I said, I think in the first episode, or was, trust me, I'm a little confused over what I'm saying in the Japanese series for Hearts of Iron 4. Japan has a real resource problem. That is much of the reason why it's doing much of the things it's doing, is its resource problem. Now, they have it, we would give, no. And a lot of it actually comes down to lack of shipping once the Americans start doing good submarine warfare against them. Now, earlier on, you do have significant infrastructure problems. Japan radically... no, we don't want to do that. We are building up... I think we'll have enough coal. I think. Radically builds up infrastructure, including railways in Manchukuo. Manchukuo, what? They go in 31. They sort of start going in 31 or 32. I think it's 34. They get Puyi in their informant. Okay, we are doing this one because we're presuming we're getting the bad result. And we're not doing specialist training, at least not yet. We've got to get more. Okay. How many days is this going to take to build? Build time. What? Build time for a police unit? 87 days? Wow. So used to building up the... It's not a lot of ICs, I know. Oh. Yeah. So used to having better practicals in some of these things. That's some of the stuff I just got to get used to with this. It just fascinates me. Like I say, I've recently been watching some documentaries on Japan and reading some books, several on the Pacific War. Some of the views the Japanese had, the people in the government is what I'm talking about. They thought they could have a war with the Western Allies, get a bunch of victories, get maybe more than they need. And then once they were in a strong position, the Allies were going to then try to negotiate, open negotiations. Now this is sort of what, and this is, I understand, is basically what happens with their war with Russia. They go to war with Russia. Japan takes Port Arthur. Japan sinks the Russian fleet. They, through Teddy Roosevelt, the American president, offers up to negotiate a peace settlement between them. They go into it. They get a peace settlement, which pisses the Japanese off all to hell. The Japanese people, they're pissed off at the peace settlement. The main thing is that Sakhalin Island is divided between Japan and Russia still. They wanted all of that. Now, of course, they go into World War II and lose what they did have of it, but yeah. So they're, so that is some of their experience. And so they think that is what they're going to get when they go to war with America. Now, I don't know, Yamamoto, who make statements and they're recorded, make private statements and they're recorded at the time, that he knows that by going to war with America, they're going to lose. But he's a Japanese admiral. Oh, and he's very much on the moderate side, very much on the, yeah, we need to prepare and do stuff, but the two nations we don't want to go to war with are America and Britain. Sure, you want to go to war with the Soviets? Sure, we can do that. You want to go to war with somebody else out there, whoever that might be. I don't know that the Dutch or something would be isolated enough, but sure, if there's somebody else out there, you need to go to war. And this isn't, and I want to go back and say this very clearly, Japan is the aggressor in all of these wars. This isn't a situation in where you had no choice. Say like the Netherlands. They had no choice but to fight a war. So it's not stupid for them to fight a war with Germany because they didn't have a choice. They were invaded. They can surrender, and basically at some extent they just do. But, and more so, we could say the Danish just do. And so all this criticism I'm going to be putting on Japan is based upon their deciding to go to war for goals and objectives, as opposed to, okay, so it looks like most of these are sort of done up now. Okay, which gives us a hint. Okay, 47. Now we've also radically increased our ICs, so okay. And so Yamamoto knows that they're going to lose the war, but he's the admiral and he knows that he's going to do better with his, because there are other good Japanese admirals, but much of the Navy is battleship focused, and he knows that carriers are going to be the thing that is going to affect or be the primary effect of who wins or loses the war. Okay, Lithuania. And so he knows this. And let's see if we can sell some supplies to the U.S. But he also knows, so he goes into the war and obviously is the architect of the Battle of Pearl Harbor, although of course after they victorious, many other admirals and Tojo and others, I'll try to take credit for it. But he is shocked and appalled. Okay, we just had a crash there. Well, I don't know why we had that crash. I have recently played with this game well past 36. So this is going to be the episode for tonight. I'm going to have to see what I can do to move past the first save. I'm very disappointed in this. Because like I said, in the last week I played several games into late 36 and auto-saving. So I don't know what is the problem. The big thing I'm thinking is I've tried a bunch of different settings on, difficulty levels and that kind of thing. Maybe one difficulty level we picked is causing this crash. I will try to diagnose this and see what we can do about it. I don't know if because I'm recording the episodes, which does take up other resources that may be causing this. So see you next time for, hopefully soon, more Hearts of Iron. Thanks so much.